Blessings, beloveds. Anastasia, Cosmic Astrologer with you guys. Going to talk about the lunar eclipse coming up in a couple of days' time. I'll just bring up the chart. There it is there. Okay, so it is a lunar eclipse in Capricorn. Obviously, it's a full moon. It just happens to be a lunar eclipse as well. So we can see that it's a full moon by the location of the sun at 13 degrees of Cancer, 37 minutes. The moon directly opposite at 13 degrees and 37 minutes of Capricorn. That's what distinguishes a full moon. So I have been looking at this chart the last hour or so, getting a sense of it. Don't worry about the location of where everything is relative to the houses, because that will change based on your actual location. This chart is drawn for Melbourne, and the exact timing for the Southern Hemisphere down here in Melbourne is the 5th of July 2020 at 2:44, 16 minutes PM. That time and day will change based on your location, but essentially we're looking at the 5th and 6th of July, or 4th and 5th of July, actually. Well, it depends where you are, 5th and 6th. Okay, so the things that stand out to me are two very important asteroids, and Chiron as well. They figure very strongly in this particular full moon cycle. And as most of you would be aware, I do place a lot of emphasis on the asteroid goddesses. I work with them a lot in natal chart readings, and when I'm actually looking at forecasts and just what's happening from a forecast perspective relative to the world. We can see here that Chiron is in Aries, has been for a while, will continue to be for a while. It's no longer moving retrograde. You can see there's no letter there, right? So it's just recently gone direct. Mars is catching up. So in this chart, Mars is conjunct Chiron in Aries. Later this year, Mars is going to go retrograde in Aries. I'm going to come back and do a separate video for that. Juno just recently went direct in the sign of Libra. She's been dancing around backwards and forwards in Libra for quite some time. So this is quite significant that we have both Chiron and Juno exactly opposite each other and both moving direct. And both of those are forming a square to the sun and to the moon. In other words, to the full moon. So technically what we have then is we have a grand cross. This configuration that you see, which is made up with at least 4 planets or bodies. In this case, we have an asteroid, and Chiron, technically speaking, is referred to as a planetoid as opposed to a planet. Regardless of the technical jargon, the point is that these 4 all line up together. It's a grand cross in cardinal signs. Cardinal is a quality that refers to certain signs in the zodiac, and the cardinal energy is all about action and initiation, leadership, moving forward, progressing forward. It's when we get things done, basically. We take action. So there's a very strong cardinal emphasis, simply because we have so many planets in cardinal signs. So the cardinal signs are Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, and Aries. And you can see those 4 signs have very strong planetary symbolism at this present moment. Now, I'll talk about the Juno-Chiron component of this full moon energy in a moment. The first thing that I want to focus on is actually what's really just astounding, is the conjunction between Pluto, Jupiter, and Pallas Athena. All 3 of these bodies are at 23 degrees of Capricorn. You can see that when you look at this chart. That's quite remarkable. All 3 of them on the same degree, and actually all of them are retrograde as well. And Saturn's not too far down the track. Back into Capricorn, because Saturn is going retrograde. It got into Aquarius, very early Aquarius, went retrograde and is going back into Capricorn because he has to complete his final song and dance, as it were, his final message relative to what Saturn in Capricorn has meant for the world the last 2.5 years, and also for us personally relative to where transiting Saturn is in your own chart. So there's something very important, very karmic, you could say, that's being completed and finished relative to Saturn going back into Capricorn, and that is his own sign. So it's a very strong place for Saturn. But I guess, there's so many ways to understand the energies, right, and the symbolism, because we have esoteric astrology, we have evolutionary astrology, and we have traditional astrology, just to name a few. I mean, those are the three main platforms that I work with very strongly. Just in terms of Capricorn itself, it's important to remember, because this full moon is always about illumination, awareness, objectivity, clarity, being able to see the full picture. And it's in the sign of Capricorn. So what is it illuminating into our consciousness at this point in our life, and at this point relative to the worldly events? It's pointing to the nature of reality, or at least our perspective on the nature of reality. That's what Capricorn correlates to. The archetype of Capricorn is the nature and structure of the reality we've created for ourselves and the reality we perceive before us. At its highest manifestation, Saturn represents time and space, cause and effect, karma. It's what allows for us to develop and mature emotionally. It's about accepting our responsibilities of our own actions. It represents the whole maturation cycle, which is caused by an awareness of mortality, that there is a limited amount of time within which to fulfill our intended work within our life stream. So Saturn and Capricorn is the reminder that life is short and the clock is ticking, and therefore it's what comes into our consciousness that reminds us that, okay, well, where am I at in my life? What am I seriously doing about, evolving, transforming, growing, developing, maturing, taking action towards things that I need to take action towards? And it's that reminder that we can't escape the nature of this reality on this third dimension sphere. We're all bound by it. We're all subject to it. How we perceive it and how we experience it is totally different and unique for all of us. But the point still remains that Capricorn is the archetype, wherever it is in your natal chart, that is the archetype that's going to describe how you construct your reality. So Saturn in Capricorn retrograde, making a last sort of visit there, which will be throughout the rest of this year really, is a really strong, as I said before, karmic implication of something huge closing from a collective level, especially, particularly because we've had this Saturn-Pluto conjunction dancing around for a couple of years. And in the last, it hasn't been that long actually, since Jupiter and Pluto have formed this conjunction as well. So we've had these larger than life frequencies. Jupiter is most certainly larger than life, and so is Pluto. And then we have Saturn, the nature of our reality that we perceive before us, all hanging around together in Capricorn. Capricorn it correlates to order and structure, the nature of our reality. So all these things are being challenged, changed, transformed, expanded, and growing naturally. Now, the triple conjunction relative to this lunar eclipse, this full moon, is extraordinary from my perspective and my understanding. Pallas Athena is a goddess that was born from her father's head, which is Jupiter. And there she is, right next to Jupiter there. She's a goddess that, because she was born out of his head, and he is the essence of wisdom, she too embodies the essence of wisdom as an archetype. Capricorn in ancient medieval astrology is Saturn and Capricorn, and in esoteric astrology and in some traditional teachings of astrology as well. Capricorn at its highest level is really a sign that holds tremendous wisdom, actually. It has the wisdom of life experience, of having had to go through so many different things in life, to work really hard through lots of different cycles and levels and relationships and experiences and curveballs that get thrown into your pathway. It's the life experience which connects to Saturn that can bring tremendous wisdom to us, provided we learn from what shows up and we do the work. So Pallas Athena, forming this conjunction to her dad, basically, Jupiter, is such a beautiful symbolism for this lunar eclipse, and especially because Pluto's there. I mean, Pluto is the soul. It's on an individual level. From a broader perspective relative to the world, the whole collective, it connects to the absolute decay of what needs to leave, the absolute transformative agent of illuminating. And in Capricorn, we've known this for a long time. Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2008. It's actually been working through the construct of this nature of reality that we all have somehow contributed to. So the old patriarchal systems, perspectives, beliefs, ways of life, etc., they're all being smashed through Pluto. Now, this full moon is really, 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 really powerful, because if the full moon in Capricorn is illuminating for us individually and as a collective human family the nature of reality, and whatever that is for each of us, however we perceive that, because it's going to come back to your own perception, obviously. But we've reached a point at this point in time in history, with Pallas Athena there, with Jupiter and Pluto as well. We've reached a point where we can either hang on to what we thought was real, what we thought was reality, or we can allow ourselves to merge with the transformations that are taking place personally and globally, collectively. Pallas Athena is all about clear seeing. She is a warrior goddess, and she was born with protective armor all around her. Now, that's a very, very important point, because what that speaks to is that she is the goddess that correlates to self-protection. How do we protect ourselves, both inwardly and externally? So being in this configuration here of this full moon, it's pretty much suggesting we've come to a point at this time of the year relative to the current global events and our own personal life circumstances and conditions, whatever that may be, where the reality of our life, our life situations, and the larger picture of life, there's an illumination, a clarity, a seeing of what is actually really breaking down, needing to break down, Pluto in Capricorn, and what is the reality, that the nature of our own reality that we are grasping towards. See, if Pallas correlates to the ability to protect ourselves, which she does, then in this configuration here, it's that the protective component can be something that we can all connect with, align with, from the point of view of asking ourselves the question, what is the nature of reality that we are perceiving before us? I mean, there's so many issues at the moment relative to, the current global events with this COVID-19 thing and, all these other really important issues going on. And as we all are aware, there is also a lot of uncertainty, misinformation, confusion, misguided direction, lies, deception. Even from the highest professionals in the medical industries, they too are very uncertain with the current nature of this particular virus. They don't have all the answers. That's why things virtually change on a day-to-day basis. So Pallas Athena in this picture is really the ability to remove all projections, because that's what Pallas Athena does in the most incredible way. She is the power, she has the ability to remove all projections. And if you understand just how important that is, you will understand just how powerful this lunar eclipse is with Pallas Athena right there. Because the experience that we have in life, or the experiences that we have in life, are mostly things that we project from inside ourselves to the external world. Our perception of people and the world is largely connected to and coming from our own inner projections, our own inner subjective nature. So if we can have assistance and support from a body, in this case Pallas Athena, that helps us remove the false or negative projections, in order to be able to stand in a space where we can have clear seeing relative to the nature of reality, the nature of our own reality, the construct of our own reality. I think that's a really powerful experience to tap into. And that acts as a protective mechanism, because when you remove the projections, which is what Pallas Athena does, and it gives you clear seeing, you are immediately protected through that process, because you're not allowing yourself to be pulled in all these different directions relative to misguided or false information. You're relying on your own ability to see clearly. Pallas Athena, clear seeing. So this full moon carries this entire vibration frequency so strongly. It's a message, an energy that is totally being illuminated through this full moon. And Pallas Athena is about wisdom as well. She's a goddess of wisdom. She's a goddess of protection. She's a political goddess. She's a fighter, a warrior. She cares about the state of the world, of humanity. And she's very, very, um, she's very tactful. She has really skillful, sharp, skillful abilities to navigate and negotiate and debate really challenging circumstances and situations in order to get the best outcome for everybody. And Jupiter's right there with her, supporting her. That's her dad. He's right there, conjunct her. So there's more wisdom, support that's coming through the Jupiter. And of course, Pluto is smashing through the false systems, the false structures, or the structures that have simply come to a point in evolution that need to be deconstructed. That's what Pluto does. It deconstructs and then reconstructs. It's the death rebirth. So here we have this beautiful triple conjunction of those three energies all together, speaking so strongly through the archetype of Capricorn, which is the nature of our reality. And this is an opportunity for us to gain a much clearer perspective on where we stand in all of this and what we want to stand in. It's so important because, as I said before, the amount of confusion and misguided, direction, information, and so forth has really made it very, very difficult for many people on the planet. And it's completely understandable because everything's quite chaotic. We're in crisis mode collectively. We've just reached that point because things have, to put it very simply, there's just been far too many imbalances for such a long time, for thousands of years. And the scales need to tip the other way now. And we're at that real critical juncture from an evolutionary perspective, collectively speaking. So there's no point in resisting what's going on, because what's going on, it needs to happen. These shifts need to occur. The balance needs to be restored. And the best way we can contribute to that is to work on ourselves, to restore balance in our own self, to check in with our own version of reality, the construct of reality, the nature of our reality. This is what Moon in Capricorn is highlighting. It's a full moon, lunar eclipse. And then we have on the opposite side, the Sun in Cancer. And this, lunar eclipse is highly significant for the chart of America, for the chart of America, but also for the fact that America's birthday is on the 4th of July, right? So I think this lunar eclipse is going to bring up a lot of things into clearer view. It won't necessarily be pleasant, but at least things will get seen, and they need to be seen. Of course, we have Mercury in Cancer retrograde, conjunct the Sun opposite this moon, so it's there in the picture as well. The Mercury in Cancer first of all, Cancer is such a subjective sign. It doesn't have the ability to be objective mentally and clear. It's incredibly nostalgic. It relates to the past, to family. It relates to inner security, inner life. Cancer I'm talking about, not Mercury. And the Sun in Cancer relates to all of that as well. So we've really got a highlight here of the Cancer Capricorn archetypes. Cancer is our inner security, our inner subjective self, and Capricorn is our external security, our external life. So Mercury in Cancer is going through something quite deep in this retrograde cycle. of course, relative to past material, some of it can be very pleasant, because it can just be um, going through, a couple of weeks here where you just reminisce. You might reminisce on just childhood things. It could be really pleasant things. It depends what your childhood was like. Um, Even for those that have had challenging childhoods, there are some good memories here and there. I don't think it's been, completely black or doom and gloom the whole way through for any person. That there's moments that, where the light comes through a person, we shared a moment with, etc. So Mercury in Cancer is incredibly nostalgic and taking us back into, it's kind of taking us into um, the birthing canal, as it were. It's really taking us deep, very far back into past material. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with, having moments of reminiscing and having nostalgic moments. They're quite beautiful. There's a lot of richness in those memories and those moments when they come up. Um, but Mercury in Cancer and retrograde, it's going to struggle to have an objective sort of view on things. So I guess it's important to take that into account relative to this full moon, and just be mindful that, Mercury is turned within. So there's a strong inner reflective process that's going on here in terms of your thoughts, what you're really thinking about. But it's a very deep internal sort of process. Um, and water is always connected to the past, emotions, inner life, soul life. Cancer is inner security, and Capricorn is external security. So both those two archetypes have to do with some kind of security in our life. I think as well, what's being highlighted here is with the Cancer energy, I guess it's bringing into focus our own home life at the moment as well, our domestic life, where we are living at the moment. There's been a lot of changes for people all around the world, relative to people have had to move to certain suburbs or states or countries or whatever it may have been. There's been a lot of changes going on that level, just because of the global sort of circumstances that have been going on. So there's a strong focus on that as well, relative to what feels safe, what feels secure inside you. You're going to, I suppose, identify that from the point of view of your external environment relative to where you're living, but it's really more of an internal and inner state of security that needs to be understood or worked on or worked through or connected to. Because Cancer is, as much as it's about the the home life, literally your home environment, it's really about the inner sense of the inner subjective self, the inner part of you feeling safe. And Cancer is an archetype that that can feel threatened. It's the first water sign out of the 3 water signs. It's incredibly sensitive, incredibly emotional, and anything that looks to threaten its safety and security, Cancer will become very, very defensive and very, very protective. And that's a very natural expression of Cancer, but we have to kind of watch it here, because we have Mars in the mix. Okay, Mars is actually forming a square to the sun and the moon. So we could say this is a T-square, but I'm going to take it a step further and say it's a grand cross because Juno is there as well. And Juno is a very, very important goddess, a very important asteroid. And in the sign of Libra, first of all, Juno is primarily about the goddess of marriage and relationships, commitment. It's she can also show up strongly in business contractual partnerships and agreements as well, but it's more typical of her to show up in personal marriages and relationships. And so, in other words, she's the principle of relating and relationships to a very large extent, and she's in the sign of Libra, which is all about relationships. And she's squaring this full moon, and she's opposite Chiron, which she has been for some time now, but we have Mars in the picture now. So Mars is going to amp this energy up. Mars is moving direct in the sign of Aries. That's his home sign. He's very happy there. He's like a rocket through the sky, totally impatient, acting on pure impulse and instincts. If we can manage to work with Mars in Aries relative to tuning into our instincts, somehow harnessing that energy to bring forth our instincts to help us make more wiser sort of choices and decisions, then we can tap into this in a much more positive way. The downside to Mars in Aries is that it can fuel anger and aggression, conflict, tension. It can be very demanding and very much about itself and what it needs and what it wants. And it's like, screw everybody else, get out of my way. This is what I want and this is what I'm going to do. That's very much Mars in Aries. So we have to watch this energy very, very carefully. And it is going retrograde in the sign of Aries this year. And remarkably, it's going to be in the sign of Aries until January 2021. So Mars is going to be in Aries from now until next year. That's a really, really, really long time. The other significant point to Mars in Aries is that Mars going retrograde in Aries is such a weird experience because Mars in Aries is literally moving forward. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It's the sign that takes action, initiation. It's driven to act, to take action. And in a retrograde experience, it has to slow right down. It has to take steps back, and it has to be more reflective on its impulses and instincts and actions that it chooses to put out there, right? I'll talk about that when I come back to the Mars in Aries retrograde video, but he's speaking quite strongly to this full moon. So on the one hand, we could say Chiron and Mars, they're together in Aries, is a really powerful force for using our Mars energy through Chiron to activate, to initiate, to act on components of our own self in relation to our own identity that we need to heal, that we haven't been able to do so before. See, Mars is courage, and Mars in Aries is tremendous courage. And so Mars in Aries conjunct Chiron in Aries can be the initiative point and energy that can open up this courage that maybe you need relative to Chiron in Aries and your own identity, working through some of those issues. So that's one level. And another level, of course, is that Juno is directly opposite all this. So it's not just about doing the Mars Chiron in Aries thing just for yourself. That's a huge part of it. But the other part of it is we have to bring in the Juno in Libra, and we have to balance that energy out, literally. Juno's got to do with balance. She's in the sign that's got everything to do with balance. So we're looking at a dynamic here relative to this full moon of finding some restoring balance, or finding abilities to harmonize our experience of relationships and our own sense of self, our own identity, who we are in our own right, and who we are in relationships as well. This is the theme that's being highlighted here. So some very powerful energies that can really assist us to work on these sorts of issues. And Mars there is amplifying this, it's energizing it. It's the, at best, it can give, as I said, the courage to work through some things that maybe have been just too difficult to confront previously. And or Mars can stimulate anger and conflict and violence. So that's just another theme that's without question a possibility as well. It's always about how each of us resonates with that frequency, how much awareness we bring to it, and how we're working with that energy. So these are the themes that are speaking very strongly to this lunar eclipse. But my favorite component is that triple conjunction with Pallas Athena, Jupiter and Pluto, enabling us to remove projections and get a clearer understanding, have clear seeing in a new picture of reality, a new reality, because we are without question moving towards the fifth dimension. We are moving towards a new reality, a new way of life, whether we like it or not. And if we can work with that from our highest levels, from our intuition, from our heart, from places of vulnerability, honesty, from recognizing our own flaws, whatever they may be, from being open to what it is we may need to step up into, show up into, that's uncomfortable. Because the nature of being human is to not want change and to not want uncertainty and to feel comfortable. So anything that takes us out of that zone is what takes us into the territory of Uranus, Neptune and Pluto. That's why they are the three transpersonal planets. And we don't naturally and easily and automatically gravitate to those three transpersonal planets on a day-to-day basis. It really requires a lot of work to work with those energies very constructively and consciously. But we all have the ability and opportunity to do that. So those are my reflections on this lunar eclipse in Capricorn. I hope that what I shared with you today gives you some insight, some clues, some reflective material. For those of you born early July and early January, who would have their sun in Capricorn or Cancer, for instance, so 4th of July, 4th of January, this eclipse is going to be right on your sun or opposite your sun. So I think those of you who have that situation going on will feel this quite strongly in your life. And of course, any others who you may have any of the other personal planets, you know, at 13 degrees of Capricorn or Cancer, then this eclipse is going to be running over those planets in your chart. So check those things out. And I will leave it there. I have a lot of things to get to, which is why I didn't come and do a video, and I chose to do an audio for today. And I've got some personal matters that I'm still attending to that haven't actually resolved as yet. So it's been really, really challenging for me the last 3 weeks. I can't tell you how challenging it's been, but anyway, we all have to work through what's presented, and that's all I'm trying to do. So sending you guys much love and blessings, and look forward to catching up with you guys soon. And as always, please feel free to share, you know, in the comments section, share amongst each other, share with me. You can ask a question. Of course, please try and keep it relative to the subject for today. And look forward to seeing you guys very, very soon, probably with the Mars in Aries retrograde cycle, which I think is going to be absolutely huge for all of us. Okay, see you guys soon. Much love, and thank you so much for listening and for subscribing. Bye for now.